Hello, my name's Vicky Butterfly. I'm an international performer and I'm going to share some of my inspirations with you. Today I'm going to talk about LOWE Fuller. LOWE Fuller was a performer of the Gilded Era of the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century. And although a lot of people I think see her as a dancer, that's probably neither accurate nor really what her talent was. LOWE Fuller is probably most familiar to people as artworks on famous posters, maybe by Toulouse-Lautrec, and also one of the first performers ever to be filmed with a particular performance she did, which was a serpentine dance. And usually when you see her in maybe adverts inspired by her, she's drawn as this kind of like graceful nymph-like creature. But one of the things that's so fascinating about her was that everything about her was constructed. She was a not particularly successful American performer on the variety stage in a few plays. But it was a gimmick that she invented using lots of fabric and a particular design of wand that was to make her name. Via her sort of movement that totally abstracted the body to become sort of moving shapes, and her work was based around the idea of nature, natural shapes formed in nature. She adapted, I'd say, early aesthetic dance with maybe some influence from the moving veils of what we could see as sort of the more like oriental movements to create something that no one had ever really seen. She patented very early on certain kinds of, as well as all her acts, she patented various sorts of theatrical lighting, that some of which we still use to this day, to use lighting techniques to suggest particular maybe like particular themes. She was neither young nor particularly attractive. She was photographs of her show her to be fairly dumpy, always in tweed with little wire-rimmed spectacles, and she never smiles. Yet on stage, people seem to really connect with the idea that she transformed herself into to this nymph, particularly because she used electricity. She shocked herself quite badly sometimes, but particularly because she used electricity, which was something that was currently very, very fashionable, very magical, and it was seen almost as, and her as being almost like the spirit of the age, the kind of modern, I guess the modern technological spirit. I think since I started performing, I was working a lot with fabric and manipulating fabric. I love the way it moves. I like moving with fabric. So I think the first time I saw her perform, it was actually quite a shock, because it took a lot of similar elements to things that I'd been thinking about. So I was physically inspired by her, the idea of how much fabric can you manipulate and what shapes can you make with it. But I think I was also very interested by the idea of abstracting the human body by using, so sometimes actually by bringing back maybe elements of what she wasn't, like as a mover. She wasn't a dancer. She wasn't really sometimes a person. So I like the idea of bringing back the idea of a person into it, and so actually having a personality while using the techniques and the movement and abstracting it to become something else. And I suppose using that as a part of an erotic entertainment. I'm interested in technology. I'm interested in lighting design. I'm very interested in effects, and that's what she did. She was I would say she was more than anything. It's easiest to describe her as a showwoman. She's known as being one of the first modern dancers, but I wouldn't always class what she did as dance, and she hasn't really left much of a legacy, because she was, well, obviously creatively she's left a legacy, but because she was very protective over her work. If anyone tried to do anything like what she did, she would sue them. So unlike Martha Graham, Isadora Duncan, Ruth Saint-Denis, they were all contemporaries of her, and they were seen as being very much of a particular movement. she's the only one that never really had a lasting dance school. She had pupils that she taught directly, but they supported her work rather than replicated it. She wasn't so keen on that. Once you've seen Lowe Fuller's work and know who she is, you'll start seeing her everywhere, from adverts for Perrier Jouet to Edison. You'll see her represented in art. I think to see her work, there's a shadow of her on the early film screen, but I think it doesn't really capture half of what she did. So I think the closest thing you'll go to find her work is probably in your imagination and by looking at nature.